Another proud moment in Jamestown Jammers history. We're glad to continue a good positive relationship with the Florida Marlins, and we got some big changes coming for the 2006 season. And to start that off, we're going to introduce Bo Porter with the Marlins as the Jamestown Jammers' new manager. Bo, come on, I'd like to present.
It even matches my outfit. So I'll snap a couple of these buttons here. I'm not a player. Thanks a lot, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Wow. First of all, I want to say thank you to Matt and his whole staff. They've been very, very nice in this whole process. From the time I got the call from Bryant that the Marlins wanted me to come and manage the team here. With this being our 5th year, I think that the relationship is continuing to grow. I think it's a good situation for the Marlins. Having our young guys come to a place where they can really concentrate on baseball. I think this is a town that's rich in baseball. Baseball's been here for a long time. I'm excited about it. I know the Florida Marlins are excited, and I think that the players that we're going to get here are going to see that this is a really neat town for a minor league player to come and play his first year, or you may have some second year guys that come here also. But a good place to start your professional baseball career. So I'm excited about it. I know the Jammers are excited, and I think we're gonna put a good product on the field.
Okay, right now I'd like to introduce Brian Chattin, Director of Player Development for the Florida Marlins, the man who's responsible of getting us our great draft picks into town. So, Brian,
Thanks, Matty.
thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thank you all for coming on out and being part of this. We had this opening come up in our system for a manager here at Jamestown about a month or so ago. Mike Mordecai, who was here last year, decided to stay at home. He's coaching a high school team back home. He wants to be with his kids. So we opened up an opportunity here, and the decision on who to bring in as your new manager was a very simple one for us. I've known Bo for a little more than a year now. He was our hitting coach at Greensboro last year in the South Atlantic League, and it didn't take me long to realize that we have a special baseball talent here in our organization. This guy's baseball aptitude, the way he goes about his business, and his passion for this game is unparalleled with many folks that I've seen. He has a very distinct way of energizing those he works with and bringing that energy to the field each and every day. I would go to Greensboro last year, probably 20 games to see those guys. It didn't matter what time I got to the park, Bo was already there, working with a player or several players to try to make them better. All the stuff that the fans out there don't see in the development process. And so when it came time for us to hire a manager, it was very simple. Bo was the guy I wanted. Bo was the guy the entire staff wanted. And very happy to have him come here, be part of Jammers baseball. 2006 here, I think, is going to be an exciting year. He's going to bring the passion that he has for this game and the energy level that he brings on a daily basis to this field, to Dietrich Park, and to all the players that put on the Jammer uniform. And I think that's going to show out on the field in our performance. So I'm very happy to have him here. Obviously very happy to continue our relationship here in Jamestown with the Jammers, and looking forward to a good 2006. So thank you.
Ron, you want to get on the other side of Bo, get a picture of the three guys together, and that'd be terrific. If I had a sign with numbers on it, it would be perfect for the post office wall.
America's most wanted.
Okay, now I'd like to introduce Kevin Morse. He's the president of the Jammers Advisory Board. I know Kevin would like to make a...
Jamestown certainly has a very rich and varied history and tradition of professional baseball. It continues in 2006. I work with a group of very dedicated and distinguished volunteers who come, meet very frequently to help and advise the Jammers on all various aspects of items that relate to professional baseball in town. And I would like to thank them for all their volunteer efforts and challenge everyone, not just in the Jamestown community, but in the surrounding communities, to come out in '06 and support and welcome and be a part of this wonderful game of baseball. It is America's pastime. It's a wonderful facility, and on behalf of everyone on the board, I would like to welcome Bo Porter to 2006, and we're looking forward to a great year. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll open up to any questions from the media.
In terms of personnel, and Bo, you can address that too if you'd like. Matt, I guess it's for all three of you guys, but Brian, why don't you start?
It's a good question, and it's an interesting one that I've thought about and kind of dealt with quite a bit this off season. In the trades that we made and the changes that we made within our system, we acquired 15 young minor league prospects that are going to filter into our system and hopefully work their way up to the big leagues sooner rather than later. A lot of those players you probably won't see here in Jamestown because they're a little more advanced in age and ability level. However, when you take into account the large draft that we had last year, acquiring the likes of Chris Volstad and Gabby Sanchez, a couple of the difference makers here, we have what we believe is a additional amount of talent in our system that we've had. And what you get with that, with the acquisition of these 15 players and the large draft that we've had last year, as well as this year, is you're going to start to see, in my opinion, kind of slowing down the system and our talent increasing, as well as maybe not quite advancing as fast as they normally would. So in my opinion, we're going to see more talent here in the years to come as a result of the influx we've had here in the past couple.
Bo, I guess my question to you is, how does that make you feel knowing you're going to have some guys that really are especially talented playing at this level, where normally if they kept their roster pretty much intact at major league level, you probably wouldn't have the experience and the talent at this level?
Well, I think that's good for the organization as a whole. I think that when you talk about development and you want to develop winners, and I think one of the biggest things as far as developing winners is that they're able to win throughout their minor league career. By the time they get to the big leagues, they know how to win. And the more talent pool, the better the talent pool in your organization at each level, the more opportunity that the guys are going to have to develop as winners. So I think that the trades that were made at the major league level and us being able to bring in the quality of minor league players that we received in those trades are going to make the whole system stronger. And I mean, it will be evident here in Jamestown also.
Your turn, Dan.
Yeah, my turn. I kind of want to touch on kind of what both Bo and Brian both had to say regarding one. I'm excited to see that the young talent that will be coming to Jamestown, and also with vacant spots open on the Marlins roster, we're kind of hopefully see some of the guys that have been in Jamestown in 2002 and 3 and 4 move up, like Jason Vargas. I know he was here, just a short time, and he moved up, and hopefully we can see some of the guys that were here the last couple of years excel through the ranks and see them in the Marlins uniform, and when they made a major league club.
Matt, what was your reaction with all the transactions here since the end of the season, from your perspective as a general manager of a Class A team, knowing what impact that will have on the roster here in June?
Yeah, to me, I was kind of excited about it because it goes back to that point where people can see the Jason Vargas or the Taylor Tangersley or the Eric Reed, the former Jammers of a couple years ago, see him up in the major league roster, and I think that's going to, as a selling point of this, see the stars of tomorrow, today, that kind of goes with our whole aspect of here in Jamestown, that you can see the young talent that the Marlins provide us, and just, a few short years later, they're at the major league level.
This is a question for maybe Brian. With regards to what's at least circulating around among the major leagues and about the change in the potential scheduling and the timing, which may impact the New York Penn League, do you have a reaction to this? Something that was going to start potentially this year, looks like something will happen next year. Do you have input at this schedule or at this level where you are at? And do you get a sense where we're going?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it was one that was brought up this past year. We have farm director meetings every year, and it was addressed heavily in those meetings and it was met with a substantial amount of concern simply because of the lack of time that we as major league organizations would have to make those adjustments. So it was tabled for 06, and it's going to be pursued again in 07. And basically what that's going to mean for the Jamestown Jammers will be an increased length of the season, running basically from, I guess it would be mid to end of May through about the middle of August will be about how that schedule would run. We'll increase the length of the season. Obviously, the more games you play, the happier I am. That's additional development time for our players. But it also impacts other clubs that we have in our system. Those below us, the Gulf Coast League Marlins, the extended spring guys. And so those are some things that I have to deal with and address to make sure that what we're not getting away from is the development process, because that's the most important thing. I like the system the way it is now. Sometimes change is met with some resistance just because you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm sure MLB tries to have our best interests in mind, but it's just something we're going to have to work through.
Will this also impact the talent pool because of the fact you have to put together a team here in Jamestown, for example, in May rather than after the draft, which normally occurred in late June?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. I think what you're going to see are a lot of repeat guys, fellas that you probably saw the year before. You're probably going to see again to start the season in May. And then as the draft comes, which is also going to be changed, it's going to be moved back to the end of June. Whenever that comes, you're going to start to see then a filtering out of the players that we've had here for the first part of the season with some of these newly drafted players. Is kind of how I see it working. So I think you'll see a lot of new faces, a lot of different faces, and a lot more turnover than you've seen in previous years.
To Bo Porter, this is your first managing opportunity. You've had a chance to manage with some of the greats. Is there a role model for you?
Well, I think that throughout my career, I've taken bits and pieces from a lot of the managers in which I've been privileged to be around. Jim Briggleman, Bobby Cox, Art Howe, and for the most part, I think my playing career, because when I played the game, I never played the game just as a center fielder. I played the game within the game, and I pretty much played all 9 positions, even when I was sitting on the bench. So being a manager is almost like an extension of me just taking what I did when I played, and now I'm just going to lead the entire team with that same mindset.
And to Matt, what do you think of George Sisson?
He's all right. No, George is a great guy, and I will actually ask this truthfully. George has been a big asset. George has been a big asset to the organization. I know, especially with this weekend, with all our different events, with the youth clinics and the hot stove dinner. George has really stepped up, and I'm just glad to have George on the staff.
Ryan, I have a question for you. Thanks to a guy who works with you, who's from the area originally, Greg Leonard. Just talk about him and his role in the Marlins operation, and obviously deal with him daily, I would
Yeah, his office is about 10 feet from mine, and I wish that we had a few more Greg Leonards in our office. He's a special kind of a guy and a real good talent. He's our assistant scouting director, but he really does a whole lot more than just that role. He's been with the Expos and now the Marlins for probably 12 years. He's worked his way up, and he's about the most efficient worker that I think I've ever seen. He can do more in a day's time. It's like he's in the Army. He can do more before 9 a.m. than most of us do all day. It's impressive to watch him work. And he always speaks quite fondly of the Jamestown area and of him being part of this. And he's obviously happy that we've got an affiliate here. And so I always joke with him every year before we start the Jamestown season, we'll get an email, myself, all the player development staff who are going to be in Jamestown, from him about all the things to do and see in this neck of the woods. And I unfortunately haven't had a chance to take him up on some of that stuff, but Greg's a real good asset to the organization and a real good baseball man.
After the news conference, I had a chance to interview Florida Marlins Director of Player Development, Brian Chattin. Brian reports directly to Jim Fleming, and of course Jim Fleming reports directly to the general manager of the Florida Marlins. Brian is directly involved with decisions which relate to all of the minor league players. Brian Chattin. Brian Chattin, get into baseball. Is this a lifelong adventure?
I would say it probably is. It's always been a very big passion of mine, and always my favorite sport. I grew up in the Hoosier State, so you would think it would be basketball, but I always grew up a baseball fan, and I actually never realized, growing up in the country like I did, and not having a big league club anywhere near us, that there was a career in sports that was available. I didn't realize that was an option went to college, and fate kind of stepped in. My junior year of college, an independent team moved into the city where I was going to school.
Where'd you go to school?
Southern Indiana. It's in Evansville. And I ended up catching on with them my senior year, just kind of helping out, volunteering, and just kind of take it from there. It's kind of how it worked, and never really thought it would develop into what it has, but been very fortunate and kind of ironic to be where I am now. I never expected that to be the course that my career would take.
What is the career path? You know, from the independent, where you were just a volunteer intern, how did it work from there?
I started my senior year with this club as a volunteer. I graduated in May of '96 and finished the season with that team, worked with them during the summer. Then they hired me on full time. They actually, after I graduated, or after the season was over, they didn't know if they were going to create a full-time position for me or not. It was one of those very low-level organizations, entry-level type deal that they had 2 full-time employees. I would have made 3, and so they didn't know for a long time if they were going to be able to work that out. And I ended up actually living at the ballpark for about 3 months till they decided. So they didn't know if I needed to get a lease or what have you on a place, and so I ended up getting on full-time with them and worked for about another 6 months, and then got into graduate school at Ohio University over in Athens. They have a sports administration program. So I enrolled in that the following June of '97. I left the club I was with. I did that for about 9 months. That's all the longer the program is. And then from there, I got an internship with the Marlins in their marketing department as a marketing intern. I got done with at Ohio on a Thursday, and I was with the Marlins on that following Monday as an intern in the '98 season. And I went down there with the goal that A, I wanted to get into Major League Baseball, and B, I wanted to probably pursue something in community relations, like the idea of helping the community and being part of that. Couldn't get that type of gig, but got in the marketing side and quickly realized that the community probably wasn't what I was looking for. It was probably more so something else, but I didn't really know why. Just happy to be there. So I interned with them for about 3 months, got a full-time job in the sales department. Once again, doing something I never thought I would ever do, which was sales. But my rent down there was $500 a month, and my pay as an intern was $500 a month before taxes, so it made a real easy decision to make. And ended up doing the sales thing for a couple years, and it was a tough time for us down there. It was '98, '99, 2000, very lean years, losing records. And after doing that for a couple years and having some success at it, I realized that I wanted to be in the game forever. I just didn't want to do sales forever. So I looked to try to get into an area where I could see myself spend a lot of time and kind of focus my attention on the baseball side. It's kind of a tough nut to crack as far as getting in, and worked a long time at it, made a lot of contacts, expressed interest, and finally in March of '02 just caught a break. A fellow left during spring training, and the Marlins needed somebody to jump in real quick, and I happened to be with the company already, and they already knew about my background, so I caught my break and started as a baseball ops assistant in '02, and then last year got promoted to the current role that I'm in. So kind of a backdoor way to get in, but
Sure.
but fortunate nonetheless.
What's been the biggest surprise?
Probably that player development and baseball operations deals with so many facets of the game that aren't on the field. You know, whenever I was an outsider looking in, I'd see these guys watching games and out of the ballpark and getting sun and what have you, and it's so much more that goes into that than just what you see, you know, on the field. There's the administrative aspect, and there's the dealing with the volume of players that you have. You know, you've got 150 players just in the States, 30-some staff. They all have goals in this game. They all want to become big leaguers in some capacity. And unfortunately, the way the game works, it's just not that going to be that way for most of them.
Mhm.
So that aspect of trying to manage so many different personalities all with the same goal is probably been the biggest surprise for me about how, not necessarily difficult, but how important that is to try to do a nice job with that.
How difficult is it to control expectations? So when somebody gets drafted, they sign for a professional contract, obviously that is their goal, and to kind of help the kids, or 18, 19, 20, to have a perspective on that. I think that's got to be a difficult challenge.
It's a difficult challenge. A lot of times, the game itself will answer that question for them. You know, everyone comes in with the idea they're going to be a big leaguer, and I don't want our scouting staff to draft players that don't believe that. I want every one of our guys to think that they're a big leaguer, and I wish that all of them were, but the reality of the game makes it to where a lot of them are not. And it's just, everyone who comes in here is the best player on their team in most situations, and they get here, and the level of competition in pro ball is so much greater than amateur ball, or probably what they even expected. So I don't necessarily have to tell them what their expectations should be. The game generally does that for them.
What did you find, well, Mike Mordecai was for his first year of managing here last year. Mike, as it turned out, stayed in an apartment we were at.
Okay.
So it was kind of a unique opportunity to kind of see the list a little bit what he was going through. What was Mike's impression when the year was done, his first experience, Jamestown, New York? Here he'd been a very highly competitive player, certainly, and then all of a sudden he's a manager. He's the guy that's calling the shots on the field. Pros and the cons of it. I mean, what was his critique of it?
I think what he found was that he could certainly do this. You know, he's such a quality baseball man with such a great mind for the game that being out on the field and managing a club is something he's certainly capable of doing, and doing it at a very high level. I think what he also learned was that these players aren't like he was as a player. You know, he came out of a highly successful college program and went through the Atlanta Braves system as a player relatively quickly. He maybe didn't have as much talent as some players, but he knew how to play the game so well that he was able to advance himself more so than other guys with similar talents could. And what I think he found here was that not all the players have that kind of acumen that he had coming out. He just knew the game. A lot of the kids that are in this league and that he managed with the Jammers have a heck of a lot of talent, but not quite the knowledge or the understanding of the game that he had. So that, I think, was maybe not a surprise for him, but a little bit of a learning process. I think he had hoped or just assumed that everybody would be like he was. They just would come in and know how to play the game, and it's just not always that way.
And if I step over the bounds of confidentiality, let me know. But I was
Sure.
always curious as how did he see for his first year the relationship between his ability to manage on the field and his taking directions from the director of development, or as to number of pitches and who to play? And that, I mean, there's a balancing act going on here.
There very much is. It's a good question. I think it was a bit of a learning curve for him as well as for myself. You know, someone like him who's 10 years in the big leagues and a quality baseball man, and having myself come in who doesn't have nearly that much experience, you know, trying to direct his job as far as how I'd like to see things done, was one that was a good working relationship. And you know, I think that he learned that was kind of how it was done. Maybe he didn't always want it that way. Like, he had a certain way of doing things, but it wasn't the system that we have set up. And so, but he did a fine job. You know, he did the things we were looking for, and so much of what Morty was all about, and so much of what makes him a good manager, isn't anything that we are trying to do as far as a developmental thing. It's just the knowledge that he can pass on to these players. You know, the intricacies of the game that he picks up, that he notices that aren't in any player development manual or aren't in any instructions I would ever give a staff member. It's just what he inherently knows and sees about the game. And those are the kind of things that he passed on that were so invaluable to the Jammers last year.
From your perspective, this is a short season, A league. What are your expectations of the players at this level?
First and foremost, I want to see them get better. You know, it's all about development, and I want to see our players start the year as a type of player and end the year with improved skills. Whether they succeed on the field or not, if we see that their development is progressing and they're becoming better players and turn into the kind of players we believe they can become, then that's what I'm looking for. This level is a very good development level for any player. A lot of fellas who come in here, it's their first experience in professional baseball. And so they experience life on the road. They experience, you know, long road trips and living on little amounts of money and small per diems, and what it takes to be a professional ball player, how to prepare professionally. So this level is very good in that capacity. It also shows a lot of fellas who are young in this league, how good people really are. These fellas that we send up here, and we do this a lot more than some teams in this league, we send high school kids up here knowing that they're probably going to take their lumps and they're probably not going to have a lot of success. And we do that on purpose to put these guys in situations where they may fail, so they see what it takes to get to that next level and what you're going to have to do to advance your career up to the big leagues. So this league will definitely do that for you. You have fellas who are 22, 23 years old here, proven college seasoned adults, and you have 18-year-old high school kids in this league as well, and it's a sink or swim kind of situation. So this level is very important to anyone's development.
So when you get guys who are in the rookie leagues, do you find you place them up there for that reason? I mean, basically, you want to, I don't want to say an acid test, but the rookie league's a little different psychology, I suppose, than putting in here where there is a good mix. Some teams, I'm thinking Auburn in particular, they seem to, Mike mentioned, he goes, where the hell do they get these old guys? But that's their mindset of this Penn League, and yours is maybe a little bit different because I think they different philosophies. But as you decide who to place where, does that become a factor?
It becomes a question to an extent. I mean, we want our players to develop the right way. You don't want to put them in a situation where they're going to fail miserably and their development is going to be hindered as a result. It's kind of a fine line that we walk here as far as when we feel a guy is ready to come up here. We have the Gulf Coast League and we have Extended Spring, which are 2 levels below this, and we'll give a player time there to get himself going and acclimated to professional ball and swinging the wood bat every day and things of that nature. But in order for a guy to develop, they've eventually got to jump into the big pool, and this is a lot bigger pool here than you get in the Gulf Coast League. So we'll talk it over amongst ourselves and then decide if this player is going to be capable of holding his own here, and if he is in fact probably going to struggle, does he have the maturity and the confidence to accept that frustration, accept that failure, and not let it hurt his confidence.
Were you surprised? Were there any surprises off the Jammers team last year that you can recall, as far as guys that stepped out beyond what your expectations were?
I would say there were probably a few. I'll give you an example on both the offensive and the pitching side of things. Gabby Sanchez was a surprise for me. I did not get to see him play collegiately. I don't do a lot of amateur scouting in my job. I did see him in a pre-draft workout. I got to see him hit for a significant amount of time, and I could see some ability there. I never would have thought that he would have hit .355 in this league and win the batting title. I didn't see that kind of ability in him on just a brief workout look. That was just a quick look, and but our scouts were smart enough to go get him when they did, and he's proven to be a much better player offensively than I thought he was going to be. You could see the power there. You knew he had that. But as far as being able to hit for average and take balls the other way, he's got a very advanced knowledge of those type of things that you need to see in order for anyone to advance. And that was a surprise for me. On the pitching side, it would probably be the righty out of the pen, Daniel Baroni. He was here the year before with moderate success. He did not make the Greensboro club out of spring training. He went to extended, and he was just kind of a guy. He had a good arm, but I didn't see a lot of other stuff there. Not a lot of command, a lot of secondary stuff. And then we brought him up here, and he really took off. Something just clicked in him between the time I saw him in May until he got here. Within that month, something clicked, and he was one of the most impressive pitchers that we had on this team, so much so to the point that we promoted him to Greensboro, where he continued to have a considerable amount of success. So, I don't know what it is, if it's just a confidence or if they just figure something out. It's everybody's a little bit different, but those were 2 very pleasant surprises from last year's club.
Because there has been a lot of activity in the major league level, Florida, and the gravity will just simply pull up some guys that may be sooner rather than a normal maturation process. How do you manage that? from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a juggling act, to say the least. And we have player moves each and every day throughout the season, and I spend most of my time on that cell phone over there, all hours of the day and night, trying to make this thing fit. And the key is when you have a player who you identify as a prospect that you feel has a legitimate chance to be a contributing factor on your big league club, whenever he's ready to move, you move him. And if that means that a player who is above him has to move to the bullpen if he's a pitcher, or has to become an extra outfielder, perhaps an outfielder, that's the decision that you make. The goal is to help the big league club, not necessarily to help your minor league team. So you take that prospect and you move him when you feel he's ready for the next challenge. And if that's at the sacrifice of another player, then that's unfortunately the way that it is. That's more of an incentive for that other player than to continue to compete and succeed and prove to us that maybe we're making the wrong decision.
Vargas started off like a house of fire when he came up to the major leagues. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know how he ended up at were you happy with when the day was done with Jason's performance?
It was an unbelievable year for him. I would have never expected it. I knew that he was advanced and that he was a quality pitcher. I did not expect him to advance the way he did. And I should have known the first time I was in Greensboro. I started my year there after spring training, went there in April. He was on that club, and 2 or 3 games into the season, I watched him throw a bullpen on the side. And you would have thought it was Game 7 of the World Series in Yankee Stadium. And this is a bullpen at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He was so focused and so serious as to what he was doing for that 12-minute period that I should have known right then and there that he wasn't long for A-ball. Right. And he tore up that league, and we moved him up, and then we just kept moving him. And it got to the point to where when he got to Double-A and he wasn't slowing down, it was, well, we have a need at the big leagues, and we don't see one in Triple-A. It's Jason's the guy. And he went up there and he just ran with it. He hasn't met a level yet where he's been overmatched. Yeah. And it's not so much that he has overpowering stuff. It's just he prepares so well, and he has such a good idea what he's doing out there.
Tankersley, is he on a track which you would like him to be at this point?
He was set back last year with an injury. He was injured in spring training, and so that set him back about 2 months. And so when we got him back, we sent him to Greensboro, put him in the rotation there to get the innings, and he met with moderate success. Not quite what we were thinking, and we worked on it, and finally got some things ironed out in his delivery that we felt needed to be changed, and kind of get him back to the bulldog that he was when we drafted him out of college. We moved him to a high A late in the year, put him in the bullpen where we kind of see him be as a big leaguer, more of a bullpen guy than a starter, and he kind of took off from there. He really enjoyed that aspect of pitching, being in the pen, and being a left-hand situational guy. Guy goes in every night with a chance to play. He kind of really took to that. And then he went out to the Arizona Fall League, which is much higher competition than he's seen. He struggled at first, and then really came on late. End of the year, end of the season, he had 13 straight scoreless innings or something like that, and really took off for us. And so he's going to come into big league camp with us this year, and he's going to be given a good look to see if he's ready for that next level.
When you sit down, it's decision-making time. Who's the folks you refer to? At the minor league level, you got your charts and stuff. Is this pretty much your call, or do you sit down with Jim and what's the group that?
Yeah, I'll certainly sit down with Jim and we'll discuss. And during spring training, in which a lot of that goes on, we'll have group meetings. We'll meet with the entire group. And it's an unfortunate part of the game, and my least favorite aspect of it is the process of deciding who makes and who doesn't. And we'll put the names up on the board, and we'll say we got 8 guys we gotta let go. Here's who we're projecting. Does anybody want to fight for these guys? And if so, give us your best argument. And so we'll make it a group decision. Now, I don't know I don't have all the answers, nor does Mr. Fleming, but these fellows will give us recommendations. We'll kind of get a consensus, and then he and I will ultimately make the decision. We may overrule them, but we try to get as many opinions as we can to make the right decision.
Do the major league guys get involved in that decision much?
We'll consult them. We'll let them know that these are the fellows that we're looking to send down the road, and give them their release. And then if they have concerns about a particular player, they'll express them, maybe ask us to hang on to them. But for the most part, it's more of a consultory type of deal.
By the way, is Jack going to hang around a little bit?
He's a consultant for us. I don't believe he'll be in Miami very often. He'll probably do a lot of consulting from his home in Elon. But he'll be there on from occasion, and will certainly give us his opinion when asked.
He's an original.
No question.
He was here last year and wowed everybody.
Yeah, he's one of a kind.
You really got a terrific rating. I was looking at the minor league news and your rankings. Did you see that? 9.1 out of 10.
Oh, is that right? Very nice. But yeah, that's all right. Well, wish it were better though. We're on the, it's a gradual process. We feel that we're making headway, but it can always be better. And so it's, you look at our Jamestown close, for example, the past few years, and we've lost a lot more games than we've won. And part of development is winning and trying to develop winning ball players, but we'll never try to win a game at the sake of not developing a prospect. We'll always develop that guy or try to develop him rather than try to go win a ball game. And unfortunately, we'd like to win for everybody, but if it's going to cost us development, then we're not going to. So that's encouraging to see that someone would think that, but I don't know, when looking at it, I think we have a long ways to go.
As you project yourself 5 years from now, where do you want to be?
Oh, that's a good question. I never thought I'd be here. So, every day I consider myself blessed that I'm even in this role, that I'm in and be able to work with fellows like Bo Porter that you met earlier and the Jammers folks. And, it's such a blessing for me that, I just kind of take it a day at a time and kind of figure if I just kind of keep my nose clean and work hard and try to do the right things, that'll all kind of work itself out. I don't have any grand aspirations or plans. I'm just happy to be in this game and plugging along what I'm doing.
You're a young guy.
Well, not as young as I'd like to be some days.
Oh, but think about it. It's interesting. My daughter, just sidebar, she just graduated from law school, but has an interest in baseball.
Okay.
And she's currently getting her MBA at Suffolk University, and spent 2 summers working with Cal Ripken at his.
Yeah. Did you work with the Aberdeen Club or with his
No.
clinic?
Well, no, with they got this baseball consulting business.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so she worked with Billy and Cal and
All right.
working with the minor leagues, potential minor league cities and potential franchises.
More on the legal side
More
of
on the legal
things.
side. So
Okay.
It really caught her interest.
Yeah, I bet.
So I find it all interesting that the business of baseball is an interesting one.
Well, it is, and that's one thing that I don't have a huge background in is the legal side, but it's such an important aspect of the game. You can't do anything, whether it be obviously signing a player, do a big contract or a small contract, or even putting together a team hotel for the upcoming year without dealing with legal aspects of all that. And so, that's one thing that I recommend that whenever kids come up and they ask me, how do you get in the game or what would you do? I'd always recommend any kind of legal background that you can get is going to be advantageous to you down the road.
Sure. Like there was Danny, who spends for a while, his wife comes up here for the summer, so we'll see Danny in and out all summer. Suggested to Amy that, get your law degree, that's phenomenal. If you get your MBA degree and you're a female, I don't know how many tickets you can possibly have.
I'm telling you, you got them all there.
So, we'll see what happens. It's interesting. What's your schedule? You plan on coming back up here? Is there in a normal sequence of things for Brian Chattin? Do you try to make a week's of in each location?
Yeah, I usually set my schedule during spring training in conjunction with our coordinators. I don't want to have too many of our coordinators and guys in at the same time, so I'll coordinate, and I won't come up here until the season gets going. But I usually try to hit each of our full season affiliates twice, 2 trips each half of the season. So I try to get about 20 games in during the year with each of those teams, and then I try to get up here for at least 10 games during the short season. So on the minor league side, I'm seeing about 100 to 110 games throughout the year, hopefully, if things work out well. And then when I'm not covering our minor league guys, I'll be at the big league park, hopefully when the big league club is at home, so I can see them as well and kind of get a feel for what's needed up there and what maybe we have in the minors that we can supplement up there.
Do they have you do any scouting at all, Major League scouting?
Not on the major league side. When I'm covering our guys, obviously I'm scouting them, writing reports up on them, getting a feel for our system and what we have and don't have, and things that guys can work on and things that we need to work on with each guy.
Do you have your managers and the scouts as well scout the other team?
Yes, most definitely.
So it's the whole game they're doing?
Absolutely
Both
right.
sides of the ball.
We, every year, especially this year's a perfect example, with the trades that we made of our proven big league guys, we acquired 15 young prospects, and every time that we were dealing with the club, we got a hold of the staff that played against those teams' affiliates to get a feel for some of the players that they saw. And we'll ask them to actually write up specific reports on guys. We'd like to talk to them directly as well.
Right.
So that's, they're certainly keeping busy. When Morty last year and Bo were out here, Bo's going to be this year watching our guys, they're also keeping an eye on the other guys, because you never know when you may be able to acquire one of them fellas either in a trade or through free agency or the Rule 5 draft or something along those lines. Full scouting department that covers the amateur side, obviously leading up to the draft in June, and then as soon as the draft is over, all those those scouts go out and do professional coverage. They'll cover a minor league clubs, 3 or 4 different teams, what have you. We do it a variety of different ways. And they'll cover all those clubs and send in reports so we have some sort of database. But at the same time, we have our player development staff do the exact same thing. Because you can't ever have enough information on the guy. And to be honest with you, for me, I would almost rather talk to our player development guys on a particular player that maybe played in Auburn last year than the scout who went and saw them. The scout's seen them for a 3 or 5 game set. Maybe the guy's in a slump. Our guys will see this player over the entire course of the season and probably gets a little better feel for that player than the scout might. And so you just can't ever have enough info when it comes to trying to make a decision on a player.
People ask, and I have no idea, but in the normal course of a year, you will have 150 players sort of under your development wing.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, when the year ends, what's the attrition rate? Of the 150, how many are not likely to be in baseball the next year?
If we were to end the season with, say, 150 fellows, hypothetically, I would say that we would start the upcoming year with probably about 130 of those, maybe 135, depending on how the off season plays out.
Right.
And so whenever you let those guys go, very few of them continue on with affiliated ball. They may go play some independent ball for a while, and I hope they all continue their career. But I would say that generally you're looking at about maybe 10%, 10 to maybe 15, depending on how the off season plays out. But you're always signing free agents, and you're always bringing new fellas in to try to improve things. And there's only so many bodies you can fit in the spring training, and so many bodies you can take with you to the season. So you have to, if you're adding, you're going to have to take away somewhere else. And so it's an amazing amount. I was with George today, and I was looking at his team photo from 2004, and I was going through those guys, and it's amazing. It doesn't take long for that turnover to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And these fellas, so many of those fellas aren't with us anymore, whether they retired or we released them or they moved on to another club or whatever the case may be, and it just doesn't take very long.
You've seen a lot of baseball, Brian. What's the most amazing thing you've seen?
Most amazing thing I've seen in the game? Goodness, that's a really good question. Oh, I have to think about that one for a minute or two. I don't know if that one's going to come to me immediately. I tell you what it probably was, actually. I was a pro player in 98, 99, my first couple of years when McGuire made his run. And he came down to pro player, and he was sitting on 55, I think. And he was in 3 game set, and he hit 4 in 2 games against us. And that team that we had was not good at all, but we packed that place. And he didn't disappoint. We did everything but throw the kitchen sink at him to try to keep from giving those up. And he was in such a zone at that time that to see him make the history that he did and go from, he was 55 to 59, and when he left pro player, he was right on the cusp of Ruth and Maris. So that was a pretty amazing experience to see that.
Of course, you had the World Series.
Yes.
That had to have been a huge surprise.
It was nothing that I ever imagined I would be a part of. I always thought if there's ever a chance that I could be in this game for long enough to maybe one day experience a postseason, and to get there in 2003, and just my second year on the baseball side, and then for us to make the run that we did and win that thing, You know, it was unbelievable. I'd have a World Series ring now that fellas have been in the game 30, 40 years aren't fortunate enough to have, and I've already got one, and it's, you know, it's something I would never, ever trade, that experience. I was fortunate enough to go with the team during the postseason. I was an entry-level guy at the time, and 2 weeks prior to the season ending, we were right in a wild card race. Our GM contacted me, and I said, hey, if we get in the postseason, I'd like for you to come along and just help out. As if I wasn't nervous enough already to try to get in the postseason. The idea of actually being part of that, you know, was something that I would have never, ever imagined in my career ever getting to experience. And so, you know, I traveled with the team to San Francisco and then to Chicago, and was there for Game 6 and that amazing event. And
I know, I was going to say, wow.
Game 7, and then obviously to Yankee Stadium, and it was such an amazing ride that, you know, it's something that I'll never have to, no one will ever take it away from me. I always cherish it, and the memories from that 3-week period is just, you know, as a baseball fan and being able to be part of that is, you know, it's worth every bit of hardship that we had getting there.
Yep. Well, I know that there's a lot of Chicago Cub fans here still licking their wounds from that Game 6 especially.
Tell you what, you know, that I've seen some crazy things happen in this game, and obviously the McGuire thing was the first thing that came to my head, but when it comes to something that's just surreal, that night was that. I was sitting in a suite, you know, it was outside overlooking first base, really nice location, and we had 5 outs to go. We were down 3 runs, and Pryor was dealing, and I thought, you know, I'd almost resigned myself to the fact that we just weren't quite good enough. And then, you know, they talk about the curse, the Billy Goat curse. They talk about all that, but I don't know if there's any truth to any of that. But I got to tell you, whenever Castillo hit that ball down the line, and poor Steve Barber got his hand in the way, the entire environment of that place changed. Something changed in Wrigley Field that night when that happened. And from then on out, it just, I mean, you watched the game, I'm sure. I mean, everything just went our way from that point on. I can't explain it, but it was really an amazing experience. And then I sat in that suite probably half hour after that game, just kind of basking the fact that we got through Game 6. And I left finally about a half hour later to go down to the clubhouse, and there were still hundreds of Cubs fans sitting there, almost like they'd already lost. They had a game the next day with Kerry Wood on the mound, and you could almost just see it in their eyes. They thought, here we go again. You know, they've been down that road so many times. That was incredible.
Well, Mordecai was all part of that.
He was a big part of that. He was a big part of that. Him and Kyle Farnsworth went head to head, and he turned on that fastball, and that was, you know, when he hit that and cleared the base on that double, that was, you know, I couldn't have been more excited.
Yeah.
It was, what a lot of fun. What a lot of fun that was. There you go.
I had a personal experience where I was at the 6th and 7th game in 1997.
Oh, okay.
And, sat nearby Wayne Nzinga. I mean, that whole was another surreal opportunity. Where
So you had pretty good seats down there then.
It's a long story, but somehow we ended up with Jack Nicklaus was next to me.
Uh-huh.
And then, I'll turn this off so we do this. Anything, as to the folks of Jamestown, New York, what do you think they could expect this year from a Bo Porter and the Marlins generally?
I think that you're going to see a quality of play that is full of energy and enthusiasm and passion for the game. You're going to see guys that love to play the game because that's the way the Bo plays the game. And he won't allow his players not to share the passion that he has for it. He has as much energy and passion for this game as anyone that I've ever been around. And he makes sure that the players that he controls in this situation, he's going to oversee the entire thing, you know, are going to emulate him. You know, the team emulates their manager, and he's going to be a manager that goes about his business the right way. He's a no-nonsense guy, but he loves the game, and he loves to play it, and he loves to play it right. And so for me, when I go here, that's what I envision seeing out of this club. There's a club that loves to play, and is going to give it everything they got every night, and is going to have passion that is going to be evident to those that come out and see it. You know, I think it's going to be a fun type of game to watch, fun type of players to see, and it should be a fun time out at Dietrich Park, hopefully.
This has been welcome to Jamestown.
No question. I love coming up here.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your time. I know you're going to be on the cell phone before you'll probably walk out of here.
Yeah, I got a few things to do here before we get out to this hot stove, so yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.